Yeah, so you should go and oh, that's cool right there. I never saw that one.
Yeah.
I love that kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I always rely on lying, but I want to try to get away from it for this one.
Now, a lot of this stuff he's doing, I'm just going to grab this portrait because it's the only thing I have right now that's scanned. A lot of this stuff that he's doing, he might be starting. That looks like he started with like some of his textures, like this stuff. He might be grabbing things like, let's put this at 72. Let's see if that works. Things like I save these kind of things all over the place. Like this is just an acrylic wash that I just keep, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's doing a lot of this kind of. Now, I might reduce this down to an overlay. I always go through them first and see what I can find. That's kind of interesting. Okay, I kind of like that. Now, I could also have said, um, okay, so I like the coloring that it sort of darkened it and reduced the color. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But I save things like that, which is just I was just testing paint. Now, a lot of times I'll come in initially and just start playing with texture if that's what I want to do. Like this one, I'm going to try something here. Because what I'm actually trying to do here is just create, I even like that. Like I could come in here and go, maybe I don't like it as purple over here. Let's see if I can do this. I'm going to put my sponge on desaturate. Let's see if I can see it's knocking it way down now. So I'm going to make a little bit of that color out of there. And I'm going, I think it's still too much color. So I'm going to take that one out for now. And then maybe I could go here and then go take the overlay out of it. See if I can find something that'll just lay over it. Kind of. I even like these marks that are starting to happen up here. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I'm trying to just pull it into a little darker idea. I don't like that. I'm trying to find something close. I'm going to leave some of that texture in there because I like that. Now, and I also save things like this. Now I might use this. Let's do this. I'm going to get a brush. I'm going to get a rough brush. Let's see how this looks. Actually, I'm going to do this. Okay, and then I'm going to do this. Now, again, I do a lot of this kind of stuff with traditional things like I'm doing right now. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I also might paint little bits and pieces on other bits and pieces of paper that I might think might work cool with this. And I'll just scan them and pop them in and start playing with those, right?
Yeah, I definitely want to mess around with that.
I'm going to take, let's take, I don't know if this will work. Hang on. Oh, yeah, let's go. I always forget which way I got to go with this. I think it has to go under. Hang on. I don't know why that's not giving me my edge. Hang on. Okay, hang on. Shouldn't be doing that. All right, let's do this. Oh, maybe that's why. Something weird going on with this. Hang on. Oh, that's why. Still not doing that. Hang on. Oh, I got the wrong thing here. I lost my thing I just made. Hang on. There it is. That's why. There. So now it tore up my edge a little bit. You see that?
Yeah, how did you do that?
That's just a clipping mask.
All right.
So I created a rough, that shape, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I just made a clipping mask and it just cuts off. But the weird thing about the clipping mask stuff is that it has to be underneath your image. It feels like it should be on top, but it's not. And then you just hit option and go right in between the things and hit it, and it'll just create a clipping mask, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then I might take some of this, because if I was doing this and I'd painted this and I go down, I want to go down this other path. By the way, I can still go in here and paint. Oops. I should be able to go in here and still paint things in or out if I go to black and white here. I should see how I can still paint things out.
Mm-hmm.
Or in. I can paint things back in too. Oops. I'm going to take some of that out. Okay, and then I might come back here because I have a really cool texture in here. I like this texture. Oops, wrong layer. I'm going to pull this from here. I'm going to turn it. And I'll do some stupid things to this that I would never do just to make my point. So let's go. I want to see the texture a little more, so I'm going to shrink it. That's a huge file. So what I'm basically just doing here is trying to create some sort of texture language to start. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then maybe this layer, I'm going to pick one of these colors. Oops. Maybe that. That's too dark. Let's try that. And then I'm going to go here. I'm going to see if I can switch that. And I want to keep that texture a little bit. So I might do an overlay instead. I'm going to try something else too. Hang on. Because I should have. Oh, this is a good one. And what I want to do here is get above these two layers, pick a color. Oops. And I'm just going to try and overlay over these things. Maybe a little darker. You know what? I'm going to throw one more thing in here. Well, let's do this. I don't like that white in there. I'd probably paint that out. I would paint that out. Let's go. And I would blend these pretty seamlessly. I'd get rid of that white, right?
Yeah.
I paint that out of my mask. But what I'm going to do instead of that is I'm just going to go on a new layer up here because I want to get different brush work in here. Maybe I'll pull some of that into here. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'll definitely mess around with that stuff.
And then I might even go crazy. I mean, it depends on what the story is and all that, but I found this I just thought was interesting. Oh, and then this, look, I could come in here, let's say. Let's do this. Depending on what I was going for here. I want to see about maybe kind of halftone thing. Now, another thing here. All right, that one placed. I could come in here and I'd probably go to a bigger halftone. What I'm doing is just starting to build up sort of subtle little things. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Hang on a sec. I'm trying to get something that works here. I could even maybe go here. I probably wouldn't do this, but I could maybe go and create a layer mask here. And paint some of this out on a layer mask, right?
Yeah.
And start to reveal the things underneath again. And then there was something else I had, and then if I'm going to get really into it, I could go. Now, again, some of the stuff I'd be pulling from reference, some of the stuff I'd be pulling from my own painting, some of it, but and by the way, if I make things that I think look interesting, just washes and things like that, I scan them or I take pictures of them to keep them for later, right?
Yeah.
I've got a bunch right here that I'll give you guys. This isn't a thing that's a vector format file, but these are not vector. Okay, so I'll give you guys this. So I have all these. No, I have a different one. I have another one that's just a bunch of what do you call it? Textures. I'll give you guys all those. Yeah.
All right.
Actually, hang on a sec. Depending on what I'm doing. The trick here is building them up, figuring out your color, and then, you know, doing your thing. Hang on.
I was gonna ask too, since mine's laid out in more of like a horizontal, should I still put it on a vertical page, or how should I go about that?
Go ahead and do it horizontal, because I should have caught that earlier. And you know, if it's a bitchin' illustration, they're going to go along with it, and they're going to figure out a way to lay it in, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Well,
because I've
normally
seen
what would
stuff.
happen is somebody's going to give you parameters,
Mhm.
so don't worry about it. I found this thing that I just thought was interesting. I thought this was kind of an interesting image, just for texture.
Mhm.
And again, this would all have to serve the story. It would make no sense if it didn't, right?
Yeah,
But I'm just kind of going a little bit crazy. And then again, I'm going to figure out like that's even kind of cool. And then again, I'd probably go layer mask. Actually, I'd go this way. And I could start to sort of incorporate that into my illustration. Does that make sense?
yep.
And if you notice, I'm not just using I'm using a nice rough brush, so it kind of makes sense. Okay.
Mhm.
And then I'm going to go. I'd have to make that a nice transition. I could also go. Or let's do this. Yeah, let's do that for now. I like that. Like there, I like that. And see how it's starting to get very illustrative?
Yeah.
And then, you know, if I went really crazy, I could go. I might have to reverse this to make it work because I don't want that black in there. Let's try reversing it. Yeah, that's all better. And I can find something where I could kind of find an overlay over that too. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then I might, that's kind of interesting. Where was that? I even like that. See, what I like is that if it's just like painting, right? So if I go here and I go, that's kind of interesting, that might lead me down a whole nother path. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I actually like this as a starting point for a whole other thing. Like, is that right there starting to be interesting to me? Right?
Yeah.
Then maybe I go, hang on. Start figuring out how I can further incorporate these things. And again, it's kind of interesting. That's kind of interesting. So what this makes me do is makes me want to go and just start straight up painting back into it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, let's see. I kind of like that. But then it's like, okay, again, another layer mask. Oops. I'm going to pull this opacity up or down. And I'm starting to get too much back into realism. Oops. So I probably wouldn't go there. I almost want to start there and just start playing around with it from there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that looks creepy.
But I would start painting back into it. Now I would probably go, okay, I don't need as much textures now. I've kind of got that. I got to figure out, am I going to use this as a starting point now and start to go and paint back into it? Pull this. And then I'm going to go. Or I might come back down here. Where is that? I don't even know where that is now. Here. Or, you know, I go back to here and I start working into this, right?
Yeah.
So you can kind of see how you, and then, you know, if you wanted to, you could go, you know, which is what Matt Mahern does a lot, but I'd have to find the original. I don't even know if I can do this here. I could start to, you know, I could do things like, you know, add different elements into here and I would start painting back and forth into it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So now I would probably come in and go and start a layer on top. And I would probably still obscure his face a little more, just get it a little more integrated into the background. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because he's popping out a little bit. And I want to, so one of the ways I could do that is probably go back to my layer mask on maybe the tool one and maybe paint some things back in. Could darken these areas around his eyes a little. I'm sure he would love that I'm making him look super evil. And again, it would depend on what the story is and all that kind of thing. And I'm just going to go back and forth. And then I might switch brushes and try a different brush. I might come in here and go through my color palette. Like that's a little more integrated. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to pop it out too much. I might go to the original, which I think is here, and now go with my sponge tool and saturate and just see if, yeah, see how I can saturate things out and start lighting them a little bit. That's too much. Down here. And I like coming in here and lighting some of this stuff. Like I like all this texture down here. Because if you notice now, it's not reading so much as tools, it's just texture.
Yeah. That's why it's almost like you could take something totally different and make it work for what you're creating.
And I would be doing all this with an eye towards my storytelling and all that kind of stuff. I wouldn't just, you know, but what I like is that this is very similar to how I work in traditional media, where I'll throw things down and then start painting into it and pulling out of it. And I can do the same thing here. And I like it a lot when I start with my own painting, and I might start with a very rough, simple painting, pull it into Photoshop and start tweaking it and start getting all these ideas in here now, right?
Yeah.
And then I could come in here and start adding all sorts of elements in here. And a lot of them I would just paint. Like if I wanted some flames or something in here, I'd probably paint them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, stuff like that. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay, so but you're understanding the back and forth of traditional media into the digital idea, right?
Yeah. I'm definitely gonna mess with that.
And then I want to do this real quick. Let's see if we can go to like a charcoal gray. Sometimes this will work better with a color on an overlay, but let's try this. I don't know why I'm going down. It's easier to go down the evil rabbit hole than the normal rabbit hole. And I might come in here and start defining. I could even give his eyes like some weird makeup or something if I wanted to. But what I'm trying to do here is define some of the shapes where the shadows are, just to define that face a little more. Right?
Yeah.
And then I could also sort of incorporate this other stuff in that sort of beard idea. This guy seems like the nicest guy in the world too. So this is a weird thing to do to him. And then I could come in here. There's a lot of red bouncing around in there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I might come in here. Oops. Hang on. Gosh darn it. Hang on. It's a small shape. Oh, let's just do it like this. So I can probably take a little of that. It's going to be too strong initially. So I can give the bottom of his eyes a little bit of that reflection from that light. Yeah?
Yeah.
Hang on. I got to combine these. And again, I still might go through my overlays and see if anything looks cool. And I'll do one more thing on here. I don't think I need to do that. I'm going to leave it on normal, but I'm going to knock down the opacity a little bit. Then I might come up here just to give a contrast. I'll start off with the screaming kind of color. Well, that's kind of cool. And then maybe, okay, so now we have a warm, cool thing happening. And then maybe, I don't know if I could do this. Let's do this. Let's say I'd probably go and break up the edges again. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to save as. And some of this stuff would be cool for that murky tank.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
Let me find. Okay, so we want, oops. I'm going to flatten this, which, you know, if I'm going to flatten anything, I always keep the layered version. Don't ever flatten all your versions.
Yeah.
And then again, I might go back and come in here and make another layer mask and get the edges soft again, or torn up again. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And
but
then
you'll
I
usually start on a new page once you build too many layers.
No. The only reason I'm doing that right now is because I want to try something, and I don't think it'll do it on all the layers.
All right, that makes sense. But just usually stay on the same one.
Yeah, I mean, I'm usually building, because here's the reason. I don't want to flatten, because this is very much a spontaneous kind of thing for me, or probably for anybody. And if I flatten it and I start going down another rabbit hole, and then I go, shit, I want to go back and change that color back there. Now I'm locked.
Yeah, I've done that before.
Yeah, and I don't want to do that. And there's a lot of things you can do with sample all layers and things like that. And I probably could with this. I'm doing it for time. So let's go here. Let's go iris blur. Oh, let's go here. Filter, blur gallery. And then I can totally control how much of this fades out and how much it fades out. So maybe right about there. Which kind of gives a little bit of a smoky element back there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I'd have to come in here and go. And now you got to figure out. And by the way, there'd be a whole process with me probably distressing the type, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe it's just something really simple like that, everything doesn't have to keep following the same idea. Or maybe this has a really contrasting. Let's try this. I like to do this. I like to just run through the color spectrum and see what makes sense. Sometimes I can find something that contrasts. It's kind of cool. Feels like it's in the same family right about, or I could even do this. I could just sample this surrounding color here and see what that does instead of contrasting it. Let's do one more thing. I'm going to do that same thing I did earlier and see. I want something that's really messed up looking. Because again, I can paint this mask in and out, so I can adjust it later. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because when you're doing this, the clipping mask, it basically makes a layer mask. Then I'm going to come in here with a regular brush. Maybe not. Let's just do that for now. What the hell happened? Oh, no. Yeah, it should go underneath. Hang on. I think. I always get this mixed up. There it is. And then I can paint this in and give it a background. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So I would still have to come back in here and paint my mask further in. There we go. And I like doing it real time because then I can really see it. And there's your latest horror movie poster. Yeah.
Yep.
Or Marilyn Manson album cover. And then I can go the other way. I can switch back and forth and I can paint things back in or out. Does that all make sense?
Yep.
But that's sort of how you get that Matt Mahoney thing.
All right. Looks like fun.
Yeah, it is. I think it's super fun, man. I'm going to do another one tomorrow, maybe. Trying to see if I have a, and then, you know, I'd have to I like the way it gave his flesh tone sort of a really sort of almost cadaverish kind of look. Right?
Yeah.
And then I could come back in and, you know, it's endless, right? At some point,
Yeah.
At some point I would go, that's it. I think that would be it, you know? But
Mhm.
part of the point of this to me is like play around going back and forth with digital and this,
Yeah.
right? I really think it makes a difference if you bring some, and again, some of it's just stuff I got laying around like that. That's what we started with right there.
Yeah.
Right? It just makes a difference, you know, it really does. And I like to start with sort of a painted main image, and I might not even paint it all out. I'll paint enough and everything that I go, okay, I can bring that in and start playing with it, you know. And then, you know what, maybe I want to put a little, maybe I want to put fire or something somewhere or something, you know, and maybe I'll paint that on board or paper or something, and I'll scan that and I'll pop that in, and I'm pulling my own elements back and forth. And I might pull like that tool file that was in there and get that texture, and I'm pulling from a lot of different things. Or I mean, like my dad used to always have all these like tools like that lying around. I probably would have just went and shot my own stuff and
Yeah.
put that in. I like it when I'm pulling and making my own things, and once in a while pulling this, that, and the other. I might go outside and go, wow, it's a really interesting texture on that rock out there, and I go take a picture of it and I'll pull that in and just keep building it like that, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it has to feel not like just a bunch of random crap. It has to look like you were making decisions along the way,
Yeah. That makes sense.
because it's actually not random.
Hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay. Does everybody else understand all this?
Yes,
Yep.
sir.
So if you're thinking about going down this route, and I go down the dark route here because it's just easy to do dark.